Yeah, I mean, I think our investment thesis is that this sector is just not going to be around in 5 years. Bitcoin mining is one of the stupidest business models we've come across in our time short selling over the past 15 years of running Kerrisdale. Basically, barriers to entry are zero. Companies from all over the world can buy these ASICs from China, take them next to a waterfall in South America and get much cheaper access to electricity, and be a lower cost producer. And basically, if you look at the economics behind all the Bitcoin miners in the United States, they don't make money. They just issue shares to pay themselves, a healthy stock comp and buy more ASICs and, never really generate a return. And the whole thing is sort of a scam. And we sort of published on Riot today, plan to publish on more. As this whole sector ultimately goes to zero.
Sahm, I have many questions. First of all, if it's just a commodity and there's nothing differentiating, what makes that a scam? I mean, something could be a bad business model without being a scam. That has some connotations here, that there is something illicit or illegal going on.
Horrible business model. Sure, it's a horrible business model. It's not necessarily technically a complete fraudulent, illicit actions. But, this is just as bad of a business model as you can get. And what you see with terrible business models, think back to cannabis companies in 2017, 2018. When you're the CEO of such a terrible business, there's a lot of shady things that you do. And essentially, you're just sort of enrich yourself at the expense of shareholders. And that's what's happening here.
I want to read a statement that came to us via Riot, and this is, here we go. We disagree with the characterization of the Bitcoin mining industry and of Riot and the equally unsound conclusions reached in the Kerrisdale Capital report. We believe these areas will be demonstrated through the execution of our ambitious 2024 growth plans and resulting financial performance. What do we know about these growth plans? And then, I guess, how do you balance that against the incredible shares that have been minted, diluting the shareholders to pursue its growth?
Yeah, isn't that absurd? This company has diluted shareholders by 18% already year to date this year. I'm looking forward to that growth and dilution over the course of the year. Maybe they might be able to even get up to diluting shareholders by 50% just this year, maybe another 50% next year. Since 2020, the company has increased its share count by multiples. And this is just par for the course across the entire industry. When they talk about growth, they just mean spending more on CapEx and buying more computers. But you know what? So is everyone else in the US, and so is everyone across the world. And so what you sort of see is that the network hash rate just increases over time. Each month, each of these miners, including Riot, get less and less Bitcoins, even as they're plowing all of the cash that they're raising from shareholders back into buying more computers. It's just basically one big hamster wheel where they take money from investors, buy more computers, and then produce less Bitcoin per share each subsequent year.
Sahm, why, if the whole industry is so terrible, why single out Riot?
We got to start somewhere. And so we started with Riot. And the other thing that we haven't talked about here is Bitcoin mining is horrible for the environment. China has kicked Bitcoin miners out of their country because it's such an absurd concept. You burn all of this fossil fuel to fuel speculation around an imaginary asset. This doesn't belong within U.S. borders. The whole industry should just get kicked out and be banished to other countries that want to deal with it.
Well, it's bad for the environment. We all share an environment, Sahm. So if it's bad for the environment here, it's bad for the environment anywhere. Before we go, though, I do want to ask you about another short call that you had on MicroStrategy. Similarly, you were short MicroStrategy, long Bitcoin. You made that call, I believe, on March 28th. Since then, kind of flattish for both, right? So how long do you think it's going to take for that to play out? And, if you're talking about that sort of the stuff that it's necessary to fuel Bitcoin mining is such a dirty business, why long Bitcoin at all?
Well, I think as a trade, we want to be hedged, so we're short the miners. We think they're going to zero. Who knows what's going to happen to Bitcoin? Your guess is as good as mine. In the case of MicroStrategy, I think if it owns $14 billion of Bitcoin, the company should be valued at $14 billion by the market. What you see is a premium that makes no sense. Situations where they own $15 billion of Bitcoin, but the market's valuing them at $35 billion. I mean, a bank holding $100 is valued at $100. It shouldn't be valued at $500. So that's MicroStrategy. In the case of the Bitcoin miners, it's just a terrible business. And in both those cases, we own Bitcoin just because we think that those stocks are going to go down relative to Bitcoin. So that way we don't have a view on whether Bitcoin goes up 100% or goes down 50%. We're hedged.